Today I'm going to show you how to make this professional looking dashboard supplement where you can pick a particular category from a drop-down list, which then determines your subsequent drop-down list, which drives out a little chart like this, fully dynamic, no VBA at all. It's all just formulas and name ranges. I'll show you how to do it right now. I am John and this is Up for Excel. Now, in this video, I'm going to go through in full detail how you can create these drop-down lists here with no macros, no kind of coding or anything like that. Right, so before I start, I just want to quickly show you what's happening here. So, some of the subtler points. So, we're asking a user to pick from, I'm calling it product category, but it could be any fixed drop-down list, and it's got 3 items. Now if we pick furniture, for example, which is the first item, we then get a subcategory list which has the 4 different types of furniture in it. Pick one of those, it populates a table of numbers and a chart underneath. If we then move to, say, let's pick office supplies, we then have a different drop-down list now, which has a different amount of items as well. We'll pick one from there, populates those cells and this chart. So that's our end result. That's what we're going to do. Got an overview video on this. It's already out. There's a link in the description if you think you want to go faster and you know some of the techniques. This video, I'm going through everything. We're going to go through from scratch, build it up, all the formulas explained. We're going to start with a blank sheet of paper, so to speak. So download the spreadsheet for the finished version and let's get on with it now. So I just want to show you quickly some of the workings that I've hidden here. Effectively, what we need, I've got some hidden rows as well. I just unhide them, Control-Shift-9. So we can see everything that's going on now on this sheet. So looking over here, we've got an initial list, which is our product category, and then we've got effectively a list for every item in that initial list. We need another list of everything that belongs to it. We need that numbered, and we need to know how many items are in each of those lists in order to get the nice touch that this doesn't have any blank items in it, no matter what you pick here. So when we pick furniture, for example, we only get 4 items. We hit office supplies, we'll get the full 9 items that are in office supplies. Okay, right, blank sheet of paper, here we go. So for our example, first off though, we need these lists. So this is why I suggest you copy the spreadsheet. I'm going to copy these lists over here. Doesn't really matter where we put them. Now can click on here, double click on there, that will widen all these columns. Actually, we need to insert a couple of rows, I think. Give ourselves plenty of space around these lists. Now you could put your own lists in here, it really doesn't matter. The key thing though is that the first list is fixed and the subsequent lists are 1 per item in the first list. So if I put another one on the bottom, Up for Excel, for example, that would mean I would need another list over here called Up for Excel, and I would need various items on that. Okay, right. So I'm not going to do that because we want it to look exactly like the same finished product. So that's our first thing. Second thing is we want to know the item number on this list, right? So we're going to say, give it a number 1, 2, 3, and then we need to give these, 1, 2, and 3 as well. Just center those. so that we know we've got a numerical connection between the two, because it's much easier to deal with numbers than words in formulas, usually anyway. It's sort of more precise as well, so you have two lists with the same name, for example, or very similar. Right, next we want to know how many items are in each of these lists. Now you could just type this in, but I'm going to put in a count formula. Count A we're going to use. Now the reason we use it, you can see there's various types of count here that come up, but count A is being used because it allows us to count anything at all that's in the cell. Count would just count numbers, and these clearly aren't numbers. So click on the start. Now what I like to do is just hit Control Shift and hit the arrow down a couple of times so we can go all the way to the bottom of the spreadsheet, wherever that is, and then push F4. And actually I'm going to push F4 twice just so I can fix the row numbers in there. All right, close that bracket. Why have I done that? Well, just because if somebody invents a new type of furniture called, I don't know, what should we call it, a door, not really a furniture, but you can see that number there moves to 5. So that's why I want to do that. I'll center that as well. And that formula, because I fixed just the rows, I can just copy it across there. Incidentally, could have used Control R to do that. Right, I'm going to call that the count, and I'm going to call this the list number. Make that a bit wider. Right, so that's our basic data setup. First of all, we now want the product category choice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of that, I'm going to group it all, which Shift Alt and the arrow to the right will create a grouping for that, and that will allow me to expand and collapse that, which would be quite useful when we're fiddling around with the data. It'll mean that you can see the data better as well. Right, so first off then, we want to have product category. So copy and paste that. And then what I need to do is I need to insert a drop-down list so people can pick the product category. So what you're going to need is you're going to need, from the developer tab, you're going to need to insert a form control called combo box. Now, you might not have the developer tab, so one quick way of adding it is to click on the Customize Quick Access Toolbar drop down here, go to More Commands, and then Customize Ribbon, and straight away you should see there's a tick box for developer. Now, I did once work in an organisation that disabled that completely. So if you haven't got it, I'm afraid I do not know a way around getting that back. So you're just going to have to talk to your system administrator. I can't see a decent reason for getting rid of that anyway, but yeah, just be warned, that might be an issue. So insert the form control, combo box, instantly. There is another combo box here, which is an ActiveX control. Now I'm not going to advocate using that at the moment because it's total overkill for what we're doing, and it's going to lead you down a route of coding. So it's a way more flexible control, but it's a lot more difficult to use. So I'm going to show you, make sure you use the form control on this particular example. So on the form control, and you can just draw it, right? And you could mess about for ages, faffing about. But if you hold down Alt, it sort of clicks onto the cell edges. So I'm going to do that, and actually what I want to do is sort of probably have it somewhere around about this, probably that kind of width, and then click on the edge there, Alt, not Control, let go, and now we've got this box. Now when you click on it, nothing happens. So we need to connect it to that list. So you can right click, Format Control, go to the Control tab if it's not already. Input range is just this list. All right. Now the cell length, now you can put this anywhere, and obviously if you're producing a proper dashboard, you would probably hide this somewhere else. But I'm actually going to put it straight underneath, just so I can see the result. You can even actually put it, I mean, if I put that to I3, for example, it would hide itself underneath the box, and that's quite often a good option, but we'll pick I4 on that. Right, so now we've got our item, and it's showing up number 2 there. So I'm just going to left align that, which using the shortcut keys, do like that. So this is item choice. In fact, I'm going to left align all of this column. I don't want this bold either, because it's just going to show up. I'm going to actually make this grey font, because next to that we're going to actually have so hold on, that should say item number. So we've got this working, which is essentially telling us which column we're going to get our second drop down list from, 1, 2 or 3. Now what we need to know is how many items are going to be in that drop down list. So I'm going to put item count as the next column. Now there's a couple of ways, well, there's probably many ways you could do this, but I'm going to be using index match. Now you could actually use a straight index for this, but this relies on having like all these items in the right order and things like that. So going to make it more flexible by having an index match. I'll show you what I mean. So an index is relatively straightforward formula. Actually, it allows you to pick a row within a range of cells, or a column within a range of cells. So the range of cells that we're looking at is this here. It's the item count. So that's our range. I'm just going to hit F4 because we want that to be fixed. And then normally you could just pick a row number or a column number. So if I don't want a row number, I want a column number, and I could just pick that like that. And that would work in this instance, because when we pick office supplies, it's going to say 9 because it's the second item and it's the second column. But if I switch these two over and then do that, we start saying that technology's got 9 items in it. So I like to make it a bit more, my spreadsheet's a lot more flexible than that. And in fact, yeah, now we're even getting an error. So let's not do that, right? So equals index, same range. This time though, we're going to use a match formula. Now, even though it's asking for a row and we could put the match formula, it will automatically detect we're looking for a column, so it doesn't actually matter. Use the match formula. Now, what match does is gives us a number, a position of our matching value. Right. So the value we want to look for is the number 3. Okay, so I'm going to look at there, right? Sorry, that's the number we're looking for. Fixed it there. The lookup array, in other words, where are we looking for that number 3? Well, we're looking for it in here. So I'll do that. Okay. And what kind of match do we want? We want an exact match. So that formula there, just that match part, will say, look for the number 3 in that area and tell me what position it's in. So it's going to give me position number 3, which is what we wanted in the first place. So that tells us that technology's got 4 items. Office supplies got 9 items. Now the beauty of this is, if I switch that to there, technology, office supplies, hopefully this should work. Yeah, still working, you see. So that's the beauty of using a flexible formula like an index match over some sort of directly linked affair. Brilliant. Right, believe it or not, we're quite a long way there now, because we've got something where we've got all the information we need effectively to generate this list. We know that we are, for example, when we pick office supplies, we know that we're looking at list 2 and we know it's got 9 items in it. So that allows us to create a named range using an offset formula that goes into column 2 and gives us the 9 rows. That is what we refer to as a dynamic named range. Right, on the formula tab, named name manager, new name. Okay, now I'm going to call this, I start mine with an N because it means that I can see that it's a name range wherever it's being referred to in the spreadsheet. So whatever system you prefer to use, go for it. And this is going to be a product subcat. Product subcat. All right. Now, we're going to use a formula to distinguish name range. Normally, you would just for a name range, you would just sort of click on there and you go, yeah, I'll have that. Thank you very much. There we go. There's my named range. But that's not dynamic. That will stay the same. I want it dynamic. So we're going to use this offset formula. So offset formula, first argument of an offset formula, start point. Where does this range that you want to give me start? Well, I'm going to say it starts here. Why there? Because this is, say, the actual ranges. So I'm going basically 1 to the left of the first column, and 1 up from the first row. But yeah, I like to start there because it allows me then to say, I don't have to start doing any maths in terms of the offsets, because you'll see what I mean in a second. Because first off, we're saying how many rows do we want to move down before we start? So to me, that's 1. How many columns do we want to move across before we start? Well, now I can just use the answer from my previous drop down. It's 2. So in other words, office supplies is 2 columns to the right of that cell. If I was starting there, for example, I'd have to do some maths and like do -1s and things like that. Not ideal. How many rows has it got? Well, we do know that office supplies has got 9, and it might be tempting to sort of click on that. But then what you've done is you've fixed yourself to 9 rows, because even when that changes to, say, technology, it's not going to move across, which is why I put it there, put the formula there, so that we can keep this simple and link it straight to there, so that this becomes a changing number, therefore changes this list number. So 9 rows in this instance. How many columns wide do we want it? Well, it's a list. 1, always 1 for a list. On a drop down anyway. Right. Okay. So that's that. Now this subcategory list is what I'm using on the finished version, so don't trouble yourself with that at the moment. Just giving it a new name. Product subcat. Right. Now all we need to do, product subcat, is now put in another user form. So it's form control, and link this to our named range. So instead of putting the name in here, we can now just put n product subcat. In fact, I might need to do equals. I don't know. Do we need to do equals there? Not sure. And then the cell link, I'm just going to link it to there. Okay. Yes, right. Furniture, yep. We've got dependent drop down already. Right. I'm going to copy the formats from there. So again, this is the item number 3. Right. Now I think we can now hide all of that, and actually, just to make it look a bit nicer, I'm going to remove the grid lines. Right, so item number. Now in this case, we want to give ourselves, we want to actually know that it is bookcases. Hold on, is that? So item name, because we're going to need to use the name bookcases in our kind of sales and profit table, because we can't look for item 3, for example, because it doesn't actually exist in our data. Our data is made up of so product subcategories. You know, here's one, bookcases. You know, you can't look for item 3 in here. You need to translate it back. And what we can't do is in any way link to that. We can't just say it equals that. It just doesn't work. The cells are sat behind it. So we need to find what item 2 is in there. Right. Actually, we do need to open this back up at the moment. Right. Right, so we'll use a simple offset. So we'll go equals offset. Right. So we're going to pick that there. And we're going to say, how many rows do we want to move down by? Well, it's the number of rows. It's the number that we've just picked. How many columns? Well, it's the list that we picked. So that should give us the same answer every time. Bookcases, bookcases. All right. Next, we want a data table driven from this. So we can definitely hide this now. Right. So I'm just going to copy this a minute. No, it doesn't like that because I need to get a shot of these. So this is our output, so to speak. So we're using customer segment. We could equally use kind of anything within our data table. So I could use sort of region, province, customer name even. But the reason that I've kept it like this, I'm trying to show you a relatively straightforward example. It's not got too many options. How do we get the sales figure? So what we're saying is we want the sales from this data table. Now, incidentally, I turned this data into a table. It wasn't originally a data table, it was just a set of data. And the reason that I did that was because it means that if anything new goes on the bottom, it creates another line. So I'm just going to undo that with Control-Z. Right. And that just keeps things dynamic, basically, by using a table. And it means that these formulas kind of a bit more readable. Although some would say they're damn awkward, but whatever. Right, going to use a new formula again here. Sum ifs. Right, so sum ifs. What does that do? Well, it allows us to base a sum of some cells on more than one criteria. So sum will sum everything. Sum if will sum based on one criteria. Sum ifs will base on more than one criteria, and in this case we've got 2 criteria because we've got the customer segment and the product subcategory that we've picked. If you're using an old version of Excel, and I mean very old really, you might not have sum ifs, in which case what you're going to have to do is use some other kind of like a multiple table. You're going to need other tables running. So you can use the same kind of technique. You're just going to have to create one table based off of, say, the product subcategory, and then another sum if table based on that table to give you a customer segment category. So it's just like an additional step. So let's use sum ifs, because I think most people will be using the Excel versions less than 10 years old, or well, certainly within the last 10 years, so let's hope so anyway. Sum if. Right, sum range. What's our sum range? Right, so we'll go to our data. In this case we want the sales. Now I just highlight all the sales. Hopefully you saw the shortcut keys come up there, Control Shift arrows. You'll see we're getting this table orders, all sales. Criteria range. So first off, let's just pick the thing in our table. No, let's not. Let's pick the thing from our drop-down list, which is product subcategory. So select all the product subcategories. What's our criteria? Well, it's the thing we've picked. So we'll go back to our example sheet, and that's what we've picked. F9 because it's always going to be that thing there. Now, I tend to take out the sheet names in these formulas because they just clutter up the formula. They're really not necessary. And when you start, copy and paste between sheets, you might want to make multiple versions of this. You don't want the sheet names in there anyway. It's pointless when you're on your own sheet. Right, so that's criteria 1. So that will give us the total sales for tables, for example. But we also want to limit to customer segment small business. So again, what's our criteria range 2? Customer segment, highlight all of that. Gives us this formula again, based on the table. What's our criteria? Back to data, back to the example sheet. Click on there. Now, all we need to do here is F4 3 times there to fix just the column, because we're going to copy this formula down several rows. That's our formula. Copy it down there. Right, we get different sales results. Is this working? Office supplies, yes, those sales are changing. Yeah, definitely changing. If you want to spot check it, be my guest, pause the video, spot check it. Trust me, it's pretty hard for this stuff to go wrong. Right, now, profit. I'm going to copy the exact same formula across here, but this time, this is the beauty of tables actually. I just change that to say profit, and you notice it gives me a choice. I just pick profit there, hit the tab key, hit enter, Control D, fill down for the formula. As happens, you just copy and paste, and there we go. There's our little sales table with profit as well. Click on the different values. We're getting different items come up. Really nearly there. How do we link this to a professional looking chart? Okay, really, really simple. Okay, so how do we create a chart? Easy. Highlight that. Alt F1. Get an instant chart. Might not look very good, but at least it's instant. Right, again, holding down Alt and moving in the sides will allow you to sort of click up and fit to various cells. I picked that design before there. Then I put change colors, and I think I used that. Yeah. Chart type, I basically went up to columns and I used that one. Okay. So you can see we're getting there already, really. And then I just added some trend data labels, sorry. So there, card there, add data labels. Let's pick some nice-ish values. You can then remove the axes. I linked the chart title. Just click on it. I made it hit the equal sign and clicked on the product there. It gives me that. I actually moved that over there somewhere. Move that legend up there. Then allowed me to move that down a bit. Okay. Now, if you're expecting negative values, it's always worth right-clicking on there. Format axes. Now, never find this right. Labels, sorry. Next to axes, low. Okay, so no change at the moment, but if you get any negatives creeping in, that will help. Now you could as well put that, it looks pretty low. I mean, let's just pick something different with higher values, right? These numbers look pretty big. I actually think as well, what you can do is give them the number format. If you say you want a custom number format, all right, you just delete after the comma, 0, 0, that will show them in thousands, right? And then if you copy that and do the same there, custom, do that. That's it, don't need to copy it. Right, so that's given us that format there. So now I'll close that. What we've got is pick furniture, bookcases. We've got chart for bookcases. Instead, it's making a loss. And the finishing touch, I think, you just hide some of these workings. Now you could just like drag them off screen or something like that. But one thing you might want to do is you can just hide them by doing Control 9 to hide those rows. Control 9 hides those rows. You could give it a title if you want, and download this template. I mean, it's a finished template, even if you couldn't work through that. You've got a brilliant little interactive dashboard there, dependent drop-down list, no coding. Final point on this is that we were using a list, an initial list of 3 items. For every item in the initial list, you need to create a subsequent list for your second drop down using this method. So what if you had, say, 100 items in your initial selection? You then got to create 100 separate lists. That's beginning to be quite onerous. So luckily I've got another video coming out, might even be already, showing you a different method of creating this dynamically, where you can have a single second list that is dynamically populating based off the first list. Same result, but just that little bit slicker for very long lists. So check out that video if it's out already, and if it isn't, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, and you get a little notification in the top right hand corner of YouTube when it's coming out. So hopefully you'll look forward to that. So keep learning, keep improving, keep watching. See you soon.